samji kwartu lunga yizun gewalago.
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
You know there? No?
I'm giving her the Zoom.
Usually she's not Zoom.
Okay. She didn't have a Zoom.
Sanji chudan soji chunan lai chanchu var dani japsun che daki jinso jinbi sonam che rola penjer sanji robar hyo sanji chudan soji chunan lai chanchu var dani japsun che daki jinso jinbi sonam Androla pencher sanjien robar sho.
Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
Mana kadanyam besem chen tamji devadam deve judan dembarara chur je dungardan dungar ke judan revara chur je dungar mebe devadam meje vara chur Raje nyelen chagdan nidon chebe danyon la nevara churaje manamga besem chen tamji devadon deve chuta dembara churaje dungardan Dungar ke judan chawara churaje Dungar mebe devadam meje vara churaje Nyaren chadan nidan chebe danyola vara churaje.
May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Hello? Isa mari ngan ngumati nangla so yen tini loga treatment to tim budana ngal chitan so
Dani jitan lamcho ne turguna mamo do zhe lan jiksa jitan lamcho ne chen chungwa ce chi ne da nga zo chi ne lo zai ge chao yang zhou sa ruwa te lo zai chao yang zhou ran sam sam tu su yu fan zhen mi ang yu ring bo dan ne pi yu qin zhou en zhou ya zo ang qi tou yu ma ruwa wo den zhu yu qi den ne ta ti ki ma na ni ma zhou ya de is
lamcho rin chen chen wa re oh ngati purpa ma re oh okay oh so By the way, I can hear myself. There's something with the sound. Hello? Do you hear me? Okay. So I had an echo there. So, what's going on? All right. So now we're continuing with our teachings on the Prashna Skala and after Sublime Path. And so it's been already more than a year that we've been talking about this text. And it has been taking so long also because we sometimes we have been holding the classes as much as possible, but sometimes due to circumstances, and we didn't have a class. For example, when I went to Nepal and so on, and was unable to hold the class. But so now we are continuing with those songs or teachings. So.
카르상님아 도움이 비추주비 세제 로사다 다진로네 다다다 가르서 추페 창 줍지 세다 추페 창 세는 종어래 와 전주 줍지 마 나서 로야레스.
The last time we completed the 14 things that are meaningless, and today we continue with the 18 errors of a Dharma practitioner.
다 정보를 가리는 우선 센데 체타 브로네 로바네 추페 창 멤버들이 센데 체타 로바 추페 창 다 멤버 냠내시 단 참여고제디 전 참여고제디디 다 참텔데네 나 매년다다 법코사데 제 양보라지리상 我听之前呢，但几天出去主要去上市的呢，这球皮种了也是，我没那这个，可是总是出去这边他们这些出去几天出去这晓得他们这些有呢，这七六他当把几去做花就有了，这他给当票七六年就有，哪里有嘛的是的，啊，他个第年基本下个了吧，同大郎这七六了吧，我这现在。我去做法的纪律了，我说，我真的我来说，这种真难以强度个这是，我真的在当那个说你们俩去呢，开始过去，现在俺让说，你去的是呢，最起码的怎么当呢做，我在台湾他们前面恐怕拖不了，也身边他们在偏拖不了，我真的陈主在你们俩去的怎么当，我在前面的强手上都是就接特别，我陈主咱们让我的什么，但俺那咱们在。참여하고제디 말씀서도 매년이라 하셔서 대리진 지금 말이에요, 손이다.
So then the first verse says, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he lives in seclusion and still strives for greatness in worldly life. So this is how we go astray even when we are in a retreat. So, for example, if you're someone you're staying in a retreat and you're practicing really well, but at the same time your motive is I will gain a good reputation by practicing like that. People will respect me when I get out of retreat. Then that is a motivation of the 8 worldly concerns, and that is a mistake for a practitioner. Milarepa had said, if the Dharma is mixed with the 8 worldly concerns, it is like wrapping poop in a kadak, like a silk. So outside it looks very nice and fine, but the inside is still poop, it's still filthy. So it's just like that when even though you practice, if you think that it's for this life, then it is like that, like poop wrapped in a kata. So rather than practicing, you should think about future lives and about attaining liberation and enlightenment and benefiting all sentient beings. And you should practice to cultivate more love, compassion, and bodhicitta. But then if you practice with the intention of when I'm leaving the retreat, then people will respect me and I will look very good, then that's not good.
So. 다 초봉체는 랑동 줘봐네 추페창 세다 在没广播的时地呢，他没广播的没这些怎么马上去，这别家他广播的现在广播在做的这些了，他这了怎么马上去，然后从大金吧这批呢，这也不嘛的意思，我这前两天呢，也不用嘛的是那个啥的。
And then the next verse says, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he leads others and still strives for selfish aims. So, for example, if one is an abbot of a monastery, like a leader of a monastery, even though one does that, but if one just thinks of oneself and one's own greatest benefit, but not so much about the community, the monk community of the monastery, then that's a mistake.
别讲的像俺俩说在在本部的这些，在公办的是家长的用平常说我在所属课上这边上不去，我在错本部错我们忙部本部的话在去推我所属课上这边才做过去，对这现在这个什么马上吧去呢？我这压根不他妈的送学生的，他这样就被种在的是学生的，他在做本部作为呢在这些人提过来是，这些人这老师那么大提出那也不来是这种学生的。
So, for example, if you're a leader of any kind of community, for example, a leader of a monastery, and then you're kind of trying to accumulate some wealth in the name of the monastery, but if you're really doing it just for your own enrichment, without really actually caring much about the others, then that's a fault of a practitioner. So a true leader of a community has to think about the community first with a pure intention.
哦，真的，大天就这种吧的，在球篮开讲对了们这样的球片场，他别下要不讲，陆军要不去，土生工厂要不去，我才去有的，真的球别下都要不写给的，我想那的做家了嘛，他们这块他咱这样透过嘛的意思，我这嘛这对真的这样啊，球片种在抢这个的意思。
And then next verse, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he is knowledgeable in the teachings and still doesn't shy away from committing non-virtues. So, for example, if you're someone who has studied the scriptures very well, and you have done a lot of learning and reflections about the teachings, but then if you don't actually assimilate those teachings to your mind, if you don't apply them to your mind, then the negativities within yourself will remain. They won't go away, and so therefore that becomes a fault of a practitioner.
哦，这可惜的运动东半年是的，在东年看强法去，别且这些哪怕东年刚在球前部一般动作去，这有没些啥没吃多呢？我听着用那真的，他原来买的，这哪不可讲的吧？那小孩眼看有的，哪不看强，你嘛这东西中在有功，你嘛那做服务的嘛可惜来的话，服务的有点加了，这加了弄一下，这工作哪块做多，哪块做完了那是哪块送下来。那个完了那是那个送对的呢，他说办的做毛南的人弄学啥的，毛南的做工作提早的理由啥的，晓得这我们没听讲啦，是说培几块的没得，叫公安啦，吃完子别去讲盘碰的都是，那吃完子这些人做啥其他没了，没我要别去讲做的，别去讲把别去狂顶做说啥的，别去讲把穷说啥的吧。这个看人是，别去讲能做学的，但我说我看了是。嘎托了国家个嘛的，国家想的价格嘛的那个，要求嘛的，嘎提这个嘎是别钱的哇，提刚别钱，国想的，下个嘛的上去国想的，那个的晓得，就看人的别钱讲，如果要就这样子啦，一些吃完提刚过去，公他是啦，son些，看着公他是就别钱讲做啥地的一些过，我看着公他啦，平常看着真的一些过。
So some people, some teachers, they may speak about emptiness and then they may speak from some knowledge that they have gained from studying the scriptures, the text. So they have some knowledge about emptiness, and so then they pretend they have this profound insight into emptiness by speaking very eloquently about emptiness. But then at the same time, they don't really observe karma, practice virtue. And then then they run into the danger of their dharma actually becoming actually kind of a non-virtuous kind of dharma. And so there's this story Ruben remembers. So that when there was somebody from his homeland, and that was in a time when Tibetans came to India. So there was a group of Tibetans from his homeland who went to India. They went on a pilgrimage, and they also came to Varanasi. And during that time, there was some kind of prayer gathering, a prayer gathering of monks held there. So there were a lot of monks there. And then those Tibetans who came from Tibet to India, they just joined that gathering, that puja for some time. And so then he told me that, so he was sitting there, and so then these monks, they were just walking around, they're stepping over the texts, the holy scriptures. And of course, it probably was quite crowded there. There were a lot of people there, but still, he was really shocked that they stepped over the Dharma books, because in Tibet, for example, it is said that one is not even supposed to place a Buddha statue on top of a Dharma text. So Dharma text is even more precious than the statue, and leave alone stepping over it. So he was so shocked, and he asked the person, like, what's up with you? Why are you stepping over the text? And then the person said, oh, I'm sorry. And then he said, like, why do you say sorry? It's already happened. It's already too late. You already stepped over it. And anyways, there is no benefit in saying sorry to me after that has already been done. So he was quite upset about that. Yeah, he said there's no benefit in saying sorry to me. Yeah, so maybe it was really because the place was quite crowded, and those monks really didn't have anywhere else that they could go. There was really no other place than to step over it, but still, it's just not good. Sko Antoni Shiba din summasa di damak.
남아 체라 랑주 타마 르바네 초페 찬스다 다 제라메 총 담아 휴 담아 야보 시게레 때 냠네 마지 두네 랑 타마 르로 그레스 타마 바다 주네 들 차도 게 담아도 라메 근도 야보 토요레 때 소소 주 자마 토바지 어때 담아 그냥 토고 말해 때 내가 토도 담아 그냥 토고 말 때 말아래 비 조종유와 가르동 원서나 강원도 지초바스 강원 다차 강 자장 원 도지보 니마 지보 다 그리고 쇼바레 스쟁amba 중도 타마와 서워데 쟁amba 중도 타마 차로베스 네 남아 야보나 티 소소 티 자르마토나데네 냠나세 마토나 티 펜데 펜 토그 마레 송데라.
And then before, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he has received abundant oral instructions and his mind still remains that of an ordinary person. So one may hear many profound teachings. So you have received all the teachings from a great Lama. You know all these teachings very well. But if you don't actually put them into practice, if they don't become part of your mind, then the mind still remains ordinary. So even though you know all these instructions, if you don't really absorb them in your mind, then all these instructions bring you no benefit. Milarepa had said that when the weather is nice and you're basking in the sun and all is good, then you are a great practitioner. But when encountering hardships or difficult conditions, you again revert to being an ordinary person.
근데 다 진짜 어떻게 수점 줄란 도바 체와는 초피 상스 다 수점 파티도 준보 요래 단 안제 메고 거야 단 도바 체와서다 도바 제 메고 거초래서 와데네 초피 종래서 단 지수만다리 배송어라 모두 장송 차로 남스 모두 장송 차로 이제 요러 지편 차와 방체리 지편 차와 방약치 그때 드롭레스 다들 장송 첨송 주파는 다들 첨송nya 주파도 자자체로 마송남스 자기가 마음을 들으시면 되겠어요. 다 생산 투표는 송도 다 들으려 잘하셔서.
And the next verse, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he keeps pure discipline and still remains full of craving. So outwardly, one may appear very disciplined, but then inwardly, if one is still filled with much desire, then that is that is a fault. Oh my God. And so Milarepa also says that in the past, the sages or the rishis of the past, they practiced various austerities in order to give up worldly activities. But nowadays, all these so-called sages, don't their activities actually only increase?
냠토 상라 랑주 마튜완 추페 상스 다 냠토 파야고 버서 랑주 마튜 데르슨 요나데 안 추페 종제레스
Then a Dharma practitioner is in error when he has good experience and realization and still hasn't tamed his own mind.
다 조텐사 다제 랑 냠토다 지스 냠토바 지시오나 삼삼데 냠토바 또바 모두 쇼리야 호 냠네 시고제 미나 왜쟁게 반드시고 한자 냠네서 지리 되네 데 랑주 튜튜야 깔레 카보 살와 냠네서 주 자마토바시 디지 도파진다 다 냠네 파시마스 친도 솜나 되네 주 튜튜야 되게 편쇼 살와
So it may be the case that you have some experience in practice and some deeper understanding, but then if you don't really always practice with stability, then in difficult situations it will be very hard to control your mind, to have a tamed mind. Without steady practice, your mind will be unruly in difficult situations. And so therefore the main practice must always be to tame the mind.
근데 다 tinjo lo shandiksa te chokor shone me chu chadam abang chuesons ta chu nyamna chinya isa ne ngarang so nambe chu nyamna chinya ta tam chu nyamna chi shose ne ta se chadam te ma phang na de ang chube chang le xia den ta zhan du ya nian zhong ya zai ta ji kan chaba mong bu je yo ba ta chang ma bang ya de ska le ka bo yo re de yin na zai chung chung dang tom ne ya bo res.
And then the next verse, number 7, the Dharma practitioner is in error when, having entered the gateway of the teachings, he still hasn't given up attachment and aversion. So we may be a Buddhism practitioner and practice and speak about the precious human life with freedoms and advantages. But even if we do so, even if we speak about that, if we haven't really abandoned our attachment to friends and aversion toward enemies, then that practice is still flawed. And so, of course, giving it all up is, of course, difficult, giving it all up at once, but at least one should go in that direction and decrease them.
되네 tinjo tatari no me chu shone la chu chene sonam chaba ma to ba ne chu be sang ta te kare zo shona me da me chu me ba ta la chu chi ni sonam chaba de kan ru chu bi na sonam
In a farming like the ancient Shinkan.
sonam sen se chi me xe nyamne chi se chi ma pen ya sonam se shin sonam sen shin ga wa Chicago, then the mature shortness, that mature, and you think mature part shot, or then Fachu Tigan, the Yamachi show, on Yamna, the Nikiwa, the Mason Wachine, that's some names in the Chicago, that's the Yashin Lotoya Machiro, Yampo Machiwachi, or then Machiwachi, nothing, and you can Chupetan is, or then, oh, that's really sorry.
Number 8, a Dharma practitioner is an era when, after setting aside worldly affairs and practicing the sacred Dharma, he's still involved in farming. So it's not actually farming in the farming sense, but it's in terms of the field of like cultivating the field of merit. And so now we may be a Dharma practitioner and even live a life where we have given up ordinary mundane life and dedicated our life to Dharma practice. But then during that time, if one doesn't properly tend to one's field of merit, that is, cultivating that field of merit, creating more merit, then instead, so one tends to, the field, one's crops, and doesn't really tend care for the field, or cultivate the field first, then that's a fault of a practitioner.
Oh, then that. Well, that's around to take the lecture side, so you don't take some of that. That's a mature pop on. That's how you can show it. That's just Nikki was in it. That's it. Chima penis. Penis. Then you may young Tawas. Concept to check or is on Cosala. The imagine the Chopijon is on Cosala.
And so the point here is that if one gives up ordinary worldly life and dedicates one's life to Dharma practice, then it should be for the sake of future lives and not this life. And for that sake, one must practice as well as one can. And if one doesn't do that, then that is a mistake of a practitioner.
Well, that's not Hawani and Yamsman and Chupetans. That better the young that's this hardcore, this hardcore. Hardcore, my good, about you, Shannon. I'm not imagining they can watch it out. How a bit for loose, how a bit for Ludi, what they bet for Ludi, you take it a hanging marry. They imagine you around the Kawani did it for Tambunga to Toba, Samba, Gombas, Dagum Joson Sama, so Yams, then and then, so you the Jargores, the Matozeke, Koajibuke, they hanging marries. The mapping to Chopijon Charogres.
Then number 9, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he comprehends the meaning and still doesn't put it into practice. So if one may study the Dharma scriptures, the texts, and also understand them, but then if all of this is just left in words, and not really applied in the mind, then there is no benefit. So if it just stays with the text, then there's no benefit from all this. So we need to practice the Dhamma by first hearing, that is, we must learn about the teachings and study, and then reflect, and then meditate or practice them. So these are all necessary. And if we just leave it with the hearing part, with studying, without applying the teachings to the mind, then just hearing the teachings alone is of no benefit. That's a fault of a practitioner.
So what the social duty, Kovat needed, social duty, Jan, what in Yamna Council, that she to be at the Lucy goes on Cosarba.
So mainly one must apply the knowledge gained from studying the scriptures to one's mind and practice them as much as possible.
Oh, then that's it. It's on the Yamna Tamcha in the Duma Soban, Chupe Sans, then Yamna say Tamcha Hachi. And then some the dojis say to Banyam Donzo. Let's say to Banyam, that Tamchachi. Yeah, they do want the Nampo, no, Cheek Jan, don't know, Nampo, don't know, the younger. The young do the Numakahi to Hachi. Then Numakahi did do Mato, Numakahi do Lucido. Then Davakahi, then the Luci, you think that's a parpa, you do that Jan Damada Ganchi, home to Luci, the daughter of Maris, the Maton. Or saying, do that's a chopijon race.
And number 10, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he forms the resolve to practice and still wanders around. So some people, first they are very resolute in the beginning and they vow, I am going to dedicate my whole life to practice. I will stay in retreat and I will practice all my life until I die. So that's the resolve. But then um, slowly all kinds of inner thoughts arise in the mind, and then outer conditions appear. And in the beginning, at first, they can hold on to it for some time, for some days. But then as time passes, as the months pass by, and various situations, various difficulties arise, then eventually they can no longer stay in retreat and end up leaving. And so that's a fault of a practitioner.
이마 지스면라레바 차가다소 쇼데디드네 차가다소 쇼데디고 담보다트라소 렙디다 제콘에 잠바라디 사키야 잠바나 마한도 디스키야 아사리 테 두로다 이코야도 테트라디 제 잠바시 마르티 제 티타 칼레칼 다 조스 노팅 조노 그라 유링보 데디제 뇽뇽뇽 조노 테 조스온디 보타 마리 담보트라소 렙디다 잠바다 마르디 스키지오 두로다 요 당가 냠포 야고 마치해 허선들이 콤바자도 추는 로지면 제가 담자샤로这他们家下一下子，你妈这他这咱把的妈的，这他妈怕他做了个吧？这看来扭啥呢？这做了下，老了别叫装啥电啥，这咱把扭就把啥对这，老装电啥，这都老他了，你把吃这是，哦，他俺这老当切炒啥的，咱妈床边当中，这啥老毛家这亲两帮都咱们这老亲都下这的，这就没来，可能从我浪的，他就没来的把，或者不没来的把就他。你嘛他们家做真心没多意思，他讲着那些刚把多套的不给是，我他就要不得都是，我这他就这可能我浪的，他这没来的把的，这他啥样没得啥多，
刚把开始，
刚把多套这个是多套得不给是，就让着你的那的，刚把多套多拿套还会有哎，
我那都一开始我那头，
这刚把多拿套噻，刚把。恐怕家从那个咱们多拖那点着个吧？
哦，
这还不中呀？哦，他腾出拖这个的，他别下来，腾出拖，他就那，而且有的是那说的有点，我这不没那的把就是，他俺们他们家去条真是没得事就，你说那天怎么马上是就了，真的，哦，但你说那他刚把这多拖的这是，我这拉多，다 당보다 좀 그당 알아서 참 되냐 있는 유령보 탐자 샤도 말해 자거든 다서 유통통통 이제 봐 유정이 되게 그래서 유령보 탐자 샤 같이 돼도 막나 다 사용 거 봐.
So one time, Milarepa, when he came to practice in Takatazo, so when he first came,
다 같이 있어. 아?
and so time passed, and slowly the Tsamba. Hello, can you hear me? Hold Oh, okay. So once when Milarepa was staying in Takadaso, when he first arrived, he had some provisions. He had some tampa and some butter and a cloth wrapped around him. And he thought that I'm not going to leave this place until I gain realization. And then he practiced, and slowly the tampa ran out. And it got less and less, and he started to eat less and less so he can have it for longer. And about 3 years or so had passed until it finally ran out, and his cloth also wore out. And at that point he thought to himself, maybe I'm being too austere, maybe I'm just I'm too extreme. Maybe I should go to town and ask for some alms. And then in the next moment, he remembered the vow that he actually took to himself in the beginning. And then he sang a song to himself. And he said, essentially, don't you remember your past vow? So don't think about going. Don't think of going. If you go, you will run into difficulties. You will there will be obstacles for your legs. You will trip, or there will be some obstacle, and hardships will come. So stay here and don't go. And so this is how he again like motivated himself. And it happens. What? Yeah, what's that? Yeah. And so that happens often. And at the beginning of a retreat, it is said that actually when we first do a retreat, we first take a commitment to doing a retreat, it is that it's better to not commit for too much. Not to take a vow for too long, because if you can't keep that vow and really stay, then it's not very good for your path. So it's better to have a resolve for like shorter periods of time.
전에 다들 진조 그 제지 추리 메자 줘봐 소마 통 추베 상 서다 다파 추원다 시도래 줘봐 노랭 독시 제도냐 소소도 냠내서 야려 말해 와 대신에 추베 상래 파르데도 대 가디나 제 추원다 시시 도쇼나 제 요르와 어때 전다 강 줘봐 노랭 독시 가리나 제 치도냐 소나 되네 추베 종래
And number 11, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he does nothing other than practice Dharma and still doesn't behave properly. So there's some who actually always practice the Dharma, but at the same time, their behavior just gets worse and worse, and they start to do all kinds of outrageous things. Even though it seems that they're always practicing, their conduct is just getting worse and worse, and that is a fault of a practitioner.
되네. 다들 좋더라. 다 도잡 쇼를 종양. 샘토 초라 쇼바 추베창. 나태에서 그 초르세의 창도 거셔사리. 다들 도잡 쇼를 종. 세나 다들 냠나치디제 다 레이스 용거로 와.
하나씩 뭐래?
다들 냠나치디나 제 사야 통야동 공나동 제 다들 갈라 공산 레이스 용거로 와. Those 강인 치기 말해. 사실 냠냥군의 치디나. 제 쇼는 좀 라지 기용이래서 라지 제 뭐좀 다들 분야라 들 용식이라 와. 지나라 들 용식이 제 쇼는 좀야. 삼소를 출출라 쇼. 샘ത്തെ 제 컨트롤 말에 창도 알고 거셔서 삼소 출라. 그 현재도 세면도 상황 제 창도 치디나. 그 주피 창래서. 어때네 카라고 좀 송데 정도 소남 마사 여지 마사 소남 신카 마지와치 여지 마사나 공전 착소 시 착삼 또나 시와타 어때 공자데 냠내 오늘 치도는 차리 차 도로미 차 송데 사지메데 또어디 시 송데 텐도 통야 거야 요 말에서 요다 함스 닝보 내저 초라도 닝보 통 답에 내저 초야 뭐 중국어래 정도
And so then next, number 12, a Dharma practitioner is in error when sufficient food and clothing are naturally obtained and he still continues to pursue them. So it is said that if one truly practices, then one's provisions like food and drink will always appear. One will not die of starvation. There will be one will find food. Maybe somebody offers some support in whichever way, but there is no real fear of going really hungry if one truly practices. But then if one develops this kind of mind of envy or a jealous mind, I'm thinking, others have that and I don't have it and I need to get it, and that's the fault of a practitioner. And Kara Gomchung, he said that if the field of merit is not nurtured, then there's no real practice. I've never heard of anyone dying from hunger while practicing the Dharma, or dying from cold while practicing without clothes from practicing the Dharma. So meaning that things will come around naturally if one truly practices the Dharma. he said that the essence is to focus on the practice with diligence.
我他听就他给就是女怕，男怕当时个做过，是不是在东那把怕做个安啥的吧？做过去配层次。那就给就是这些人们的使用呢，这些女把使用，那今天出去往学在重庆这种人大，现在在南把是说在偏时候，现在这我在东那把到学现在的成就起点人这个嘛的是，我这去配种的是，可是呢，他人们养啥把去做个嘛的，但今天出去往学这个的是。现在他在前面的强学前面这种那帮人用那厕所的培养，什么当他就怕是这档活人家们懂他的在起头过嘛的，懂他的狼呢，他在起后做什么技能或培养自己的话，我就是么来的嘛的他的咋把出去弄的那个嘛开始在这起的这多活，到时他在开始懂那帮都是开始在重学那嘛开始在那把是在动，就是在动小的口。너무 컨트롤이 passato se così我的日记那的第写过什么的，咱们中多子。
And then number 13, a Dharma practitioner is an error when he utilizes his powers of Dharma practice only to assist the sick and possessed. And so if you have, you have a little Dharma practice, and so somebody may have some Dharma practice and may even gain certain powers, and then that they go to towns and perform pujas in different homes, like pujas for the sick people and so on. But then if the mind is mixed with the eight worldly concern, then that is a fault of a practitioner. This is not good practice. Of course, if it's really done with bodhicitta, then it can bring benefit, and it's fine to help a sick person. But that's not always the case. Patrul Rinpoche, for example, has said that there's those who claim to drive out evil spirits. There's those town lamas, these village lamas, who go around driving out evil spirits. For example, there was this town lama who struck a sick person, even a little bit angry. He hit the sick person in an effort to drive out the evil spirit, just basically as a kind of a performance of his great powers. And so all that really happened is just like made the sick person angry at him and sicker. So that is not good.
我种子有，经常从忙起是可牛，有牛少。你忙啊，他当然我们得有了哇，他当然我们得的，这我们在家说，这那嘛是我家穷的那些，没忙不多。没忙不多一下，经常碰碰的这地是没得，这是有啥，他没得这地是没得强多。这我做工大，但是这里怕在送一个刚把公司在没忙不着多，在碰碰这对我们都起来，那这里怕就答应吧。晓得这我们在那给他呀，手机那个没开始送的多，马来亚都他没开始送的，这家搞头嘛了嘛。晓得这里俺换的进度，这别下波是进度空。别家不这不没听过讲，那嘛那叫生修啊，上街那叫生修，去了叫谁我这打票的过去，他们不没给人打下，哎，修你打啥上去是多过去，晓得这路去，基本上都不没中学他们，俺这就给些穷嘛，是没先把这个打，就肯定都这些，俺这那中这些么都听，但我讲的讲的对我们都想过，别去打这那个。别讲了没，那么我上去了叫修活动去多了他，我讲前多年是。
It's one story that I've actually told you before. Maybe you've heard it. So back in the day when I stayed in Tibet at the Tana monastery, we were just actually building the Tana monastery at that time. And so there were a lot of people there. We built a temple. There were some lamas there giving teachings. And so there were a lot of people and some homes. And there was a girl who was not very well. So it seemed that she was a bit unwell, maybe mentally. And so one evening, a group of us went and many other people went to her home. And so I went along as well. And so when we got there, she was there screaming. And some people actually had to pin her down, held her down. And then there was this mantrika, like a ngakpa, a tantric practitioner. And so he had this Dharma volume book in his hand, and it's huge, like big, like that. And so he had this book in his hand, and he struck her on the head with the book. So every time he struck her, he said, I take refuge in the Buddha, and he struck her. I take refuge in the Dharma, and he struck her. I take refuge in the Sangha, and he struck her. And then even though he was hitting her like that, she was screaming. And then we thought that she's screaming because of something else. But later, when somebody asked her, so what is going on? How are you? She said, actually, I'm not bad. I'm fine. But last night somebody kept hitting me, and that was not so good. Otherwise, I'm fine. The next, number 14, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he teaches the profound instructions in order to receive food and wealth. Even if the instructions are profound, but if one does it in order to gain some offerings or some fame or other riches, then that's a fault of a practitioner. When giving these instructions, the intention must be pure, just for the benefit of others. But if it is for oneself, then the motivation is impure, and that's a fault of a practitioner. Then number 15, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he shrewdly applauds himself and cleverly denounces others. So, for example, I'm some who think I'm very special. So then they might not say that out loud, but then ultimately in what they do, somehow they end up just making things better for themselves. And even though they don't really say anything negative about others outright, but somehow others just end up being lowered next to them little by little, and that is a fault. Number 16, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he teaches the oral instructions to others while his own mind is not in harmony with the teachings. And so Geshe Tomi, the author of the 37 practices, had said that if someone who has no discipline, does not even accomplish one's own purpose, then proclaiming the wish to accomplish the purpose of others is laughable.
tene ta jipur do matsola matang drop meshes da makaje tene yore te chofe sanres ta ran jibo do tu mare me shen ba dan tu na de she kama da tene cha de tene yore sta yore wa na so tene ta jipu zen nyam na chi ya do jin na te do ma to ba chi mu na so de ma da ze a ma chang ma control la do ma de so so de wo mi ba chi me de wo mi ba chi ta tene chi do nya ga yore sta te chin na chu nyam na chi nya da sin na te chu pe chong res.
And number 17, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he can neither live in solitude nor get along with other people. So some people are like that. So there are some people who cannot stay alone in practice, but then also they can't really get along with others. They can't really sit with the practice, and then they are not at peace when they practice. But then when they mix with others, then they're always angry and somehow always get into conflict with others and make themselves and others unhappy. And so either way, they are not in harmony. They're unhappy, and so that's a fault of a practitioner.
다 주지 같아서 다는 기간 됐었네. 근데 단 죽사데 지메세 이제 너무 토반의 쇼페 창스 와다. 다 지보 소나 지보 소톡 말에 생원에 지는 알아서 대절 물류토 제가베 상제 된반지 담배 초고 그래서 차차 상마 상대 지보레스. 지보인 삼배 말스 지보 지보테 테크 말스. 너고 제 강에 튀나. 다 대한 동아 소톡 말이스. 어제는 지도 아니 기타 치면 더 아무 들으yorsa.
Number 18, a Dharma practitioner is in error when he is carried away by pleasure and also cannot endure pain. So some people, even when they're happy, when they're happy, they can't actually enjoy that. And so that they cannot actually appreciate what they have. For example, they forget that the value of a precious human body, and that they have found the teachings, and that all of the conditions for practice actually are together. They can't appreciate that, and then they cannot bear any difficulty, any suffering. So no matter what, they cannot actually make the best of both happiness or suffering, and that is a fault.
다 추바세데 지톰 지도 니키 톱레스 거레스 지톱 독톱 슬라브랑가 소 호크베. 지톱 독톱 제 지톰냐. 지나 지 다고라마 고초 까디지. 다 동나도 뭐 클랭게 바세 세레스 자바투 데르존요와 지나 지 고초 좀 까디지스. 동도 링게 클랭게 세게스 자바투 데르존요와. 와타나 지키고 지톱 독톱 시톰네 호레. 다지 안산산 카게 안지보지리 야보쇼 자이지카시 테시오 제 현차 제지. 대 강에 디시스 소 마톱 티크 안배 메시 강에 요래. 와세 지도 니보 다제 강톱톱제 라본 라냠소 톱다 소소소소. 와텐리 치톰네고 지도 니바 치미나 스타 담가 몬트 쳐와 이제 말하면 하래베. 지도 니보 치미나 다 담가 몬트 쳐와리 스다. 와종으로 와테 나기제 다 강톱톱 가서 냠냐 치고래 송표사리.
And some people, what this is basically telling us is that we need to kind of equalize happiness and suffering, meaning that we don't want to have too many ups and downs and be more measured, kind of more even, no matter what happens. And so in a Tibetan, is what we say. We say, for example, when things go well, then you have to think that this is the kindness of the three jewels. Remember the three jewels with gratitude. And when hardships come, then think that this is my negative karma coming to an end. It's actually Pato Rinpoche had taught that. So some people, however, that's not the case for them. Sometimes they're happy, they're too happy, they get too excited about something, so they go all the way up. But then when difficulties come, then they sink too far down. And so they are kind of caught between these extremes of up and down, and this is a fault. So it's better to remain balanced in the middle. Milarepa also said that when there is no difference between happiness and suffering, then you have mastered the essential instructions. So we stop here for tonight and see you next week. Dupinga tanda ngatse lo khai singa kapela ma takigia chiko beto.
Ja,
Yeah,
das
lasso.
so.
Sana, yeah, lasso.
Ja.
Okay, I have to go early. I have to translate to somebody else.
Ja, dedication.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yedams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, and heroines, yogini and assembly of dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drupala.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good night. Off.